Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'll be giving you some tips and advice on how to grow tomatoes like a pro. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this video. So as many of you all know, fall season is here. The cooler temperatures are here. Here in South Florida, we don't feel the hot summer heat anymore, nor the hot humid that the summer brings. So this is our prime growing season. Fall and winter is our prime growing season to grow all different types of veggies and different types of herbs. There's just a wide range of different plants we could grow during the fall and winter months since it's not that harsh outside. And one of those are tomatoes of all different types, because tomatoes, especially for us, tomatoes for us do very, very well in the fall and winter. Once summer and spring comes around, they are wilting. They are doing their best to try to survive and produce. So I just prefer to grow them in the cooler temperatures. So coming to tip number one is to know when to grow your tomatoes. It's really important you know your growing zone and your temperatures and your climate and your weather. This all plays part in when you should be planting your tomatoes. Anyone who's in South Florida or in Florida in general knows that our planting season starts in October. For us to have the best different types of yields from cabbages, tomatoes, corns, we have to start planting in October. However, if you live in a colder climate, you might be planting out in the spring or in the summer. You just want to make sure you have the dates you'll be planting out your tomatoes so you can have a great yield. Tip number two is to know the varieties you'll be growing. I'll be growing Sweet 100, which is a cherry type tomato. I've grown these year after year and I've always never been disappointed off of this variety. Of course, like I mentioned, you could always experiment with other varieties that you're new to. However, don't dedicate your entire space to experiments, as there's possibilities you won't like the plant you planted, so you will waste your entire growing season on that experiment. So what I do is grow the OGs, grow the plants you know you will enjoy, and leave a small section for those experimental type plants that you're just giving a go. So that is that. Now let's go ahead and discuss where to plant them. For me, tomatoes have to grow in containers. They can't grow in the ground as they don't perform as equally as best if I grew them in containers. So I'll be growing them in this very long Birdie's raised bed that I have. All the products I showcase in today's video will have a product link in the description box below. All products from Ep Gardening. If you use my discount code UltimateGardener5, I believe you get a 5% discount on your entire order. So make sure you get them before your season is too late, and so make sure to get them as a little gift to yourself for when the season starts. So let me go ahead and move the camera closer and let's discuss about fertilizing and how to plant your tomatoes. Okay, so here is my tomato plant right here. And so first things first is to remove all lower leaves. This will come into play in a little bit, and I will discuss to you why this is important when planting tomatoes. Before planting your tomatoes, make sure you feed your soil. I'll be planting them with some biotone starter fertilizer mixed into the soil so they can have some nutrients to go ahead and start feeding off of. So make sure to always start off with the fertilizer so they can be fed. So I'll be making a hole where I'll be planting my tomatoes and dropping in a handful, like so. Then you'll grab your tomato. If your root system is root bound, make sure to rough it up. Mine's is not that bad. Then you're going to want to make sure you plant a good portion of the stem in the ground, as roots will develop on the sides and it will anchor the tomato down. Here I have another Sweet 100. Clear off the bottom leaves. Rough up the root system. I'll make it a little bit more deeper. Okay. And like so, tomatoes are planted. Now something to keep in mind is these tomatoes are going to grow very big, especially if you have an indeterminate type tomato, so they're going to need some support. So here I have the tomatoes planted already, and for the support I used these tomato cages I got from Ep Gardening. So once again, product link will be down below. And so now let's go ahead and jump straight into the care guide for tomatoes. Number one is to stay vigilant. I think that's one of the most important things you should do when growing tomatoes, because tomatoes are very vulnerable to multiple different pests and diseases. One being the tomato hornworm. I have seen the tomato hornworm decimate my tomatoes before, so the best thing you could do is stay vigilant on your plants, and once you see them, start plucking them off and discarding of them as soon as you can, because the more they do the effect on your tomato, the more delayed your plants will have in producing fruit. Nonetheless, the tomatoes could also have blight, so you could always treat that with neem oil And so there's multiple different pests and diseases that like to attack tomatoes. The easiest way I have seen it is to stay vigilant and treat it as soon as you see some type of issue brewing. Number two is watering. Tomatoes like to be well watered, but not to be soaked. Something I've realized is lots of gardeners overhead water with tomatoes, and that is already a very big issue with fungal diseases. Especially here in South Florida, we deal with whiteflies, and so that is terrible conditions for whiteflies. If you overhead water, that's a lot of moisture you're building up in there, and that's the perfect habitat for whiteflies. So to prevent that, bend down and water at the base of the plant so you know the roots are being well watered and soaked. However, you're not having the plant in harm's way. Next is to know what soil they'll be planted in. They like to be planted in well-draining but moist soil, so make sure to grow something or plant it in some type of soil that is aerated, that has either coco coir or peat moss to retain a bit of moisture, and for it to be good soil in general so it could be well draining. And make sure that the soil has perlite mixed into it to go ahead and allow it to not only be aerated but assist in drainage as well. Now coming to the fun part, feeding tomatoes. Now tomatoes is a basic vegetable that requires feeding. And that's really important to keep in mind because tomatoes in this case are heavy feeders and they require lots of nutrition to start pumping out those tomatoes for you to enjoy. So what I'd recommend is, once again, start off with a biostarter fertilizer like how I used in the beginning, and then gradually start moving into either compost or earthworm castings, which is always organic matter is best for your vegetables. So if you have that on hand, go ahead and use it, or just use whatever you are preferred using in your garden or whatever you have on hand. Just make sure you read the instructions and feed when necessary to have the best production. I know pruning is also another thing, so I will go ahead and make a video about that when time comes, but pruning is really important to allow aeration in and out of the plant so it can prevent any type of disease to brew in your plant. So pruning is really important, removing suckers, trimming the branches when they get really, really big or too top heavy, but that's a video I will save for later on in the growing season. So make sure to leave a comment down below what varieties of tomatoes you like growing year after year. And what do you always look forward to when harvesting tomatoes? Make sure to leave a like underneath this video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already to join the gardening community. Thank you all so much for watching. May God bless you and your entire family, and never forget to grow big, ultimate gardeners. Bye everyone.